past couple of weeks, my daughter has been playing a particular song for her jazz piano lessons. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. If you don't know it, you would probably recognise it as Nina Simone recorded a version of it. And if any of you remember back to the film programme that used to be on television presented by Barry Norman, they used it as the theme tune. I don't know all the words, but I've been singing various versions, not necessarily very accurately, each time I've heard Trim playing. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I should say them loud, say them clear for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart, remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree that everyone should be free. And it goes on for several more verses. This was the song that popped into my mind when I was reading through this passage from John's Gospel, John chapter 10, verses 11 to 18. This passage is perhaps quite familiar to you. The image of Jesus as the Good Shepherd is certainly one of the most prevalent. And you, like me, have probably heard a lot said about the reading already. And there is a lot I could say too. But as that song was my first thought when I read it again this week, I'm going to focus today on freedom. What does it mean to be free? More specifically, what did it mean for Jesus? And what does it mean for us as followers of Jesus? As Christians, do we choose to live as people who are free, or are there still areas of life in which we are held in chains? Whether or not we're particularly familiar with shepherds and sheep, our familiarity with this passage can diminish the extent to which its power can affect us. We probably find it quite comforting. We read it alongside the 23rd Psalm and it makes us feel good. Jesus isn't like the hired worker who is uninvolved and doesn't care a great deal about the sheep in his care. Such a shepherd would run away in the face of danger. But Jesus is a good shepherd who loves his sheep and who protects them with his life. For Jesus, it's not just a job to keep food on the table. It's his reason for being, for living and dying. And Jesus knows his flock. An intimate relationship binds the flock to Jesus and Jesus to the flock. There are no strangers in the flock. No one should feel that they are unrecognised or unknown or unloved. All know the shepherd and all are known by the shepherd. And this knowing involves a deep involvement in each other's lives, a self-giving that we see in the crucifixion. All of this gives us a sense of comfort and well-being and perhaps even a sense of wonder. But for the people who were listening to Jesus, the reaction was not so favourable. The original audience reacted with division, as we can see in verses 19 to 21, and with violence in verse 31. These are not comfortable words. The people who were listening to Jesus are the very ones who end up murdering him. Knowing that what he was saying is shocking, knowing that he was causing division, knowing that he was provoking a reaction, Jesus then goes on to make it clear that his laying down his life for the sheep is both an act of thoroughly free will and at the same time an act of obedience to the Father's command. On the one hand, his life is not taken from him as if his death were an accident or a punishment imposed, but he lays it down of his own accord. Jesus is not to be seen as the victim of scheming opposition. In fact, Jesus has the power to take up his life again, he says. This might surprise us, as other New Testament passages point to God as the agent of resurrection rather than Jesus. Perhaps this passage binds death and resurrection together to suggest that the power of resurrection comes only from a free self-giving. Perhaps it suggests rather paradoxically that self-surrender is the only way to life. On the other hand, Jesus' freedom is firmly grounded in his obedience as a son. Jesus shows us that freedom is not about having the ability to arbitrarily make our own decisions and choose whatever we want. Jesus shows us that freedom is deeply rooted in the divine will. And what is true for Jesus is true for us too. as Jesus put it earlier on in John's Gospel, in chapter 8, verses 31 to 32. If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. On many occasions, more than I'm comfortable with, I've heard Christians say, "It's not fair. That person didn't become a Christian until later on in life. They spent most of their life doing whatever they wanted." And my response is to ask, what do you think isn't fair? And what is it that you think you're missing out on? What amazing thing is it that you think you could be doing right now if only you weren't a Christian? I'm disturbed by this way of thinking because it reveals a rather warped view of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. It suggests an understanding of Christian faith as a whole long list of things that you just can't do. There are plenty of people who don't know Jesus and who have that opinion of Christianity. We don't need Christians reinforcing that image. This kind of Christianity is not at all about freedom. This kind of Christianity is in fact a whole load of chains that seek to control and stifle and keep us from the freedom and fullness of life that Jesus promises. This kind of thinking would have Jesus saying, "If it wasn't for God, then I could walk away from the sheep. I'm only laying down my life because I've been told I have to." And when you think of it like that, it does sound rather ridiculous. The freedom we have in knowing Jesus, the Good Shepherd, enables us to choose a sacrificial way of life, a life of self-giving that is not imposed upon us. Jesus calls us to love one another, to be prepared to lay down our life for the other. We are called, but we are not compelled. It is always our choice. And surely we know this, because surely there are times when we all make the wrong choice, the selfish choice, the choice that is not made in obedience to God, the choice that serves our own purposes and desires and thinks about its impact on others as a secondary inconvenience. We have freedom to choose, but if we truly love Jesus and if we truly want to learn to follow him more closely, to become more like him in our thoughts, words and actions, then we choose love, we choose generosity, we choose service, we choose sacrifice. We choose to give of ourselves, not just the bit we think we can afford, the bit we can live without, the bit we won't really notice if it's missing. We choose to give it all, to hand over every part of our lives to Jesus, asking that he will help us live for him, like him. Jesus says, "No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." Freedom doesn't mean randomly choosing to do whatever we want. That may be free will, but it certainly isn't freedom. Freedom comes in knowing Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Freedom comes in entering into relationship with him and accepting his love and care and protection. Freedom comes in knowing how much we have received and in committing ourselves to enter a way of life of sharing all that we have been given. Freedom comes in choosing the way of self-giving love and sacrifice. Fullness of life, the deepest fulfillment, comes when we choose love with all its responsibilities. Putting the other first, loving until it hurts, loving even to death. It's not the popular path. It's not the path of least resistance. But it is the only way to discover what life is really all about. The song might be aspirational. The song, written in the context of segregation and sung by Nina Simone, a black woman facing so many more troubles in life due to both her gender and ethnicity, is particularly poignant. We know that there were so many aspects of life in which she was not as free as others. I sing along from a position of privilege, knowing that it is only the accident of my birth in a particular time and place and into a particular family that means I don't face the same things that many others have faced. As a Christian woman, I sing it. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. And I know that I know it already. I know the freedom that comes from willingly choosing of my own free will to follow Jesus. I just need to keep on praying every day that I can keep on choosing the way of freedom, the way of love, the way of sacrifice, the way of Christ. Amen.